Fox News alert moments ago, Jay Carney taking questions at the White House about a presidential fundraiser yesterday. First, here's how yesterday unfolded. In the morning, the Obama re-election team released an ad attacking Mitt Romney's work at a private equity firm, Bain Capital, calling the company a job-killing vampire. Well, just hours after they released that ad, President Obama attended a fundraising event at the home of Hamilton Tony James. He's the president of a group called Blackstone, which is said to be the nation's largest private equity firm. More than $35,000 a head. That's how much it costs to have dinner at this place. $2 million were raised for President Obama, and there is a question today about whether this is the height of hypocrisy. Joining me now to discuss it, Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall, and she's a syndicated radio host for the LeslieMarshallShow.com, and Lars Larson, also a syndicated radio host for LarsLarson.com as well. All right, guys, so that's the question, is whether this is hypocritical for him to, be bashing private equity on the one hand and then be putting his hand out to them on the other. Lars?
Megan, the hypocrite in chief doesn't have any problem putting the bite on people. He's okay with vampires as long as he can put the bite on them for his re-election campaign. I mean, he's kind of in trouble now. The polls don't look so good for him. He doesn't mind private equity capital as long as it's funding the Obama campaign. Of course he's being hypocritical, and he's really violating some of the principles he laid out as a candidate, where he said his administration was going to be transparent, they weren't going to be influenced by powerful interests through lobbyists. Of course, since then he's hired lobbyists, and now he's taking money from the very industry that he's been so critical of, that he says needs more regulation. Well, apparently not regulation right away until he gets the money out of it.
Leslie, these are the same, people that he called the fat cats on Wall Street. And shortly after the Bain ad came out yesterday morning, a presidential spokeswoman said no one is questioning private equity as a whole, but then went on to say it is legitimate to question whether those are values America needs in a president. I mean, which is it?
Well, first of all, Lars, I wore, just for the vampire deal, blood red lipstick for you. And if the president's not doing so well in the polls, then Mitt Romney's crying because they're neck and neck. That being said, This is not from the president an attack on private equity. And I know what you're saying has been said, Megan, but we have to remember the CEO of the Blackstone Group is not running for president. Mitt Romney is. Mitt Romney himself said, listen, I'm not a politician, I'm a businessman. And when I was ahead of Bain Capital, this is what I did, falsely claiming to create 100,000 plus jobs. This is how I would run America. I think it's fair that his opponent, being the president, point out to the American people what they would get if they had the former head of Bain Capital running their country.
Go ahead, Lars.
I have to tell you something. Number one, the claim of 100,000 jobs, creating Staples alone, which was the creation of Romney and the team at Bain, created about 90,000 jobs all by itself. And this is exactly what private equity does. It buys troubled companies. It tries to improve them. In some cases, the companies are so troubled that they end up going out of business. Nobody buys a company intending to lay off the workers and stop making the product. That's not how you make money. But if the president honestly has a problem, and he's saying so through his ads, with companies that buy other companies and then try to improve them to make more money and more profit, which is the only job they have, Blackstone does the same thing that Bain did. And by the way, let me point out that Romney had left Bain 2 years before this particular company, whose workers are featured in the ad. He'd left 2 years before, and let me point out as well, one of the key officers of Bain, who was part of that group that made those decisions about that plant, also is one of the biggest bundlers for the President of the United States, putting together almost $200,000 in donations for Obama while he was still working for Bain, doing the very thing the President has a problem with.
That's the question, Leslie. Is this about hypocrisy, as his critics allege, or is it about the need for cash, right? Because President Obama needs cash, and that's what he was doing there last night. I'm sure he would have loved to have said, I'll never take money from private equity because I'm bashing them in the Romney ad. But he needs cash, so they have cash. Private equity, they tend to be rich guys, so he goes to them. Even last week, they said the endorsement of gay marriage on a personal level was a net negative for him politically, but it paid big dividends when he went out to Hollywood into a couple of LGBT fundraisers thereafter.
There's no question this is about cash. You know, I've said it before, I'll say it again, whether left or right, when a politician speaks, they're usually being political. And, you know, in an election year especially. Even my president, who I back and I will vote for, at least I'm honest about it, Lars, dear. But when we look at what the president's saying, I don't hear the president saying, oh, private equity, very bad, I'm not going to take money from them. I'm hearing, listen, my opponent is saying when he ran this company in the private sector, he was so successful. Lars, you're right. He wasn't there for some of the closures and the jobs shipped overseas. But was that the case for American Pad and Paper? Was that the case for DD Corp? And can we ignore that the Blackstone Group just saved a refinery, PBF refinery, in Delaware City, saving over 700 jobs?
Quickly, Lars, I got to go.
Leslie, let me tell you something, though. The fact is, the way you save companies is by making changes. Sometimes that means adding employees, and sometimes that means employees have to go. It's the way business gets done. So if the president thinks it's dirty for Mitt Romney, Governor Romney, to have been associated with a company that was engaged in that kind of business, why is it suddenly clean for the president to be out getting money from people who do exactly the same thing?
The Wall Street Journal did an extensive report on Bain Capital and concluded that it has a record mainly of successes. I think it was 2-to-1 success rate, but there were some failures. All right, panel, thank you both so much.